Here we see the features or some main features which are added since the last summer. On the generator side, we now have the Spark generator available for Data Vault and Data Mart, in addition to the MS SQL generator. On the 1st of June, where our release date was, we had only the MS SQL generator for Data Vault and Data Mart, and now we also have Apache Spark, and the Snowflake generator for Data Vault and Data Mart will be available in the next couple of days. And we're also working on next generators, be it ODS, MS SQL Dimensional, or Redshift generator. Here, we certainly look at our customers' feedback. This is always very important for us, and see what customer need for their project. And we have our roadmap, but our roadmap is not set in stone. So it's very important to get the feedback from the customer, and we talked with our customers to know in which direction are the next generators. On the product side, on the application itself or the user interface, we have created new modeling wizards. The modeling wizards are some automation steps where you can create a couple of things. We show them already on the summer, but here we have changed a lot of things and added especially a lot of things that you can now create your project even faster. In addition, there is also a graphical interface where you can view and build relationships, like an entity relationship diagram, and discuss them with the stakeholders, for example. And this was, for example, a question during our release day presentation. And now all the relationship things and how you can model it is now part of the application. We also showed in the summer the data lineage, and now we have extended that you can check one term and see the term-based data lineage and see where data flows from a specific term. Especially helpful, of course, when you do the debugging stuff or there is something wrong and you have to check it, and then the term-based data lineage will especially help you there. Another thing which often was asked is about customization options. What can be customized in biGENIUS-X? There are a lot of customization options in biGENIUS-7, of course, and I think most of the participants know that we can customize custom property, default terms, default values, naming rules, and all of these can already be done in biGENIUS-X. One thing which we are working right now and will be available in the next days, or let's say a week, are the changes or the template customizations, where you can go and change the template, how is something created at the end or generated at the end, or you can slightly change it for your special needs. If this is needed for a specific project, this will be available in the next couple of weeks. Another thing which we are working on right now is linking project. Also something which for bigger project is often for interest. It's a linking project that you can export objects from one project and import it into other project and use them in other project. In addition, the upgrade or update of a generator version will be also something which we are working right now, that it is much simpler than in biGENIUS-7, for example. So you can easily move from one version to the next version by yourself. And this is something which will be implemented in the next versions. And now, everything said from my side about the big features. Of course, there are some small changes which will be or was implemented. And now I will pass to Mark, and he can talk a little bit more about the Spark generator.
So hello, also from my side. Thank you, Thomas, for handing over to me. Let's speak about the current state of the Apache Spark generator. And there, let's start with a brief overview on the Spark generator comparison between biGENIUS-7 and biGENIUS-X. So let's start with the file language that is used. While on biGENIUS-7, we generated Scala code, we are now generating Python code because we found it easier to getting started with the Python code. And also we do not have to handle this much with the dependency stuff that was the case with Scala. From the deployment file type side, the result now are Jupyter notebooks instead of the jar file that has to be built before. So we generated Scala code, then the jar file had to be built. Scala code has to be compiled, building a jar file and deploy this jar file. Now we have Jupyter notebooks that can be deployed directly on the target environment and are quite easy to look into what happens inside a specific notebook. And that makes it easier to see what actually happens. When we look at the load control with biGENIUS-7, we needed this Microsoft SQL Server database where we save the dependencies for the load. Now we're relying mainly on Airflow because we find it it's widely used, also available inside Azure Data Factory as public preview currently. In addition to Airflow, we have the Jupyter Notebook approach where you could start your loads sequentially, for example, or also in parallel if thinkable. We have Azure Data Factory pipelines and Databricks jobs that can be used to either model your dependencies by hand or also use it as an intermediate, as a bridge like from Airflow to your notebooks, so that Airflow triggers these pipelines or jobs to execute the notebooks inside the target environment. And from the methodology side, with biGENIUS-7, we had the dimensional and data mart, and now it's the data vault and data mart. But in the future, this will probably get even more options what you can model. But we started with the data vault for now. So first public release, as Thomas mentioned before, we have a first Spark release out. What's inside there? For the ingestion, we are currently working with Pocket files. Just started with this one, but of course more will come and has to come in this area so that we can ingest from even more sources. Modeling, as already mentioned, Data Vault and Data Mart, where also more will come for sure, and Delta Lake as a start target format. And also here, maybe in the future, Iceberg is a topic as well. From supported platforms, we have Databricks, Azure Synapse, and we did a POC on Microsoft Fabric as well. So the Generate did work on Microsoft Fabric with slightly changing the deployment scripts where we have to deal a little different with databases than as we did and as we do with Databricks and Synapse. So there had to be some small adoptions, but apart from this, it worked quite well. When we look at the generation, we have, as mentioned already, the Jupyter notebooks. There is one deployment notebook where everything is inside what you need from tables or view perspective. So everything is structural, gets deployed using this deployment script. And then we have the loaders. So each table that has to be filled gets its own loader script. And these scripts can then be used to either call them by a notebook, like the sequential execution script that we also generate, or you can trigger them using Airflow or some other technology or dependency control. We generate the Airflow tags currently for Azure Data Factory pipelines. So we can call these Azure Data Factory pipelines from Airflow, and we also generate these pipelines for Azure Data Factory so that you can deploy them on this side and then trigger them using Airflow. The same will also come for Databricks, but it's not part of the release 1 here. So what do you need for getting started? For getting started, you need the either Azure Synapse Analytics or Databricks account, where you can import your Jupyter notebooks to, and you will have to have some place where your data comes from and goes to. This can be Azure Storage or AWS S3 currently. Alternatively, if you would like to just experiment with biGENIUS-X and try to deploy the code and execute the code in a smaller range, you can just use JupyterLab. I do this myself for small testing purposes. I have a JupyterLab on my local machine using Docker, where I deploy everything and can just see what happens when I execute the scripts, and this makes things also quite easy. Is there any documentation available? It is. So there is already quite a lot actually available that helps you with the modeling, but also with the preparation of the artifacts that were generated out of the model, and also describes how you can achieve the deployment and load of data for different target environments like JupyterLab, but also Azure Synapse and Databricks. So there's quite something available. Currently, it's only accessible by active customers and partners, but if you'd like to have access, you can always contact us on the mail address cs@bigeniusx.com. That is also mentioned inside this slide. To the upcoming features. So we have quite some things that we want to add and improve. Currently, we're working on logging enhancements so that you can even better see what happened during a load, especially, or during deployment as well. As mentioned, additional source system types, the file formats that we also want to be able to load from, like CSV, JSON, or Avro, and also the JDBC connection. Then there are the load strategies, like using static partition pooling on the source, so that if you have a source where you do not move your source files, that you can prevent to read everything with every load, things like that. And also multi-version load, so this means you can have in your source multiple records for the same key and still load everything into your model according to some date that is provided. And a big topic as well is the streaming, where we will have a look at. So of course, we also want to be able to provide a streaming generator, because currently we're mostly caring about the batch approach. But of course, streaming is something we want to be able to provide as well. And as Thomas also mentioned before, input from customers and partners is very important to us. So of course, we will also consider this input and especially have a look at those features or enhancements, find a way in the product whenever possible.
Warm welcome from my side as well. Now let's get to the chase and have a look at how things that Mark and Thomas described really look like in real life, and how we proposed that you can work with biGENIUS. So what you see here is a small demo project that we use. It's based on a supermarket chain with a couple of stores called Black Forest Markets. They have some Parquet files that they have as a source for different information. Then, of course, their model is based on a data vault, because at the moment that's what we have in the core. And then we have two entities in the data mart. So we have so what they do is, of course, they sell stuff via the point of sales, so the POS. But they also have a kitchen where they do prepare some food and package this, so this can be sold at in the supermarket as well. And they would also like to have kind of analytics about how their chefs are performing, what kind of ingredients go into those products, and so on. So this is kind of the model at the moment. So first thing that we have to do here, or that they want to enhance, is they would like to have in the sales data mart, would also have the customer phone number, which is not yet in there. So what you see here is kind of the data flow approach of how to model, or the data pipe view. So we kind of go from the source and create the model objects as we go along further into the core and then into the data mart. So a model can get quite extensive. So these here are only like 20, 25 objects at the moment, model objects. But if you think of like you have 500 or more, then the overview in one big window is maybe not what you really want to have if you work with stuff. So the first thing that I would usually do when I start working here is kind of create my new view here, where kind of like my workbench. So we'll create this. And of course, as we expect, empty at the moment. So we know, okay, we want to source something new. So we add in the sources, have to look, here we are, is the phone number entity. So we add this. And then we know on the other side, we want to add this to the sales. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So this is the object. We'll have a look further on afterwards. So, but what we kind of need is an overview. Okay, what objects lead from the source into the data mart so that we know maybe where we have to add things and change things. So here we go into the data lineage, and then we can quickly add all the objects that are in this data lineage to our view. So now we have kind of the workbench that we know, okay, from here on, this is what we are going to work with. So can close this again because we don't need it at the moment anymore. So we said, okay, we want to enhance the customer phone number. So what I've already know. So what we do is the wizards that Thomas mentioned, we can use them here. So from a source object, we just create a staging object, this here. And that's it for the staging part. So if you have a look at this, the naming is maybe not really fine. So just take this Parquet thing out of here. And this is also where you see kind of the differences between like the Spark version and the SQL Server version. And that's mainly here in the custom properties. So in the SQL Server version, we don't really need the file format. We have different optimization methods, and the duplication is the same. So the main modeling between the different generators or the generators on the different technology is the same. We use the same objects, everything is the same, but we have some differences in a couple of difference that are needed for generating the code. So just to show you, so whether you model for a SQL Server or a different technology, like here with Spark, not really a big difference in how you work with biGENIUS itself. The big difference comes, of course, when you load or when you deploy and load your stuff. So I didn't save this, so I have to do it again. Sorry about that. So here we go to the save button, and now it's renamed. So what we know is that the phone number, if you look at it, you see that it has a foreign key ID, it has a phone number ID, a phone number itself, and the type code. So what they've told me is that the foreign key ID is kind of the business key from the customer entity, for example. And we also need this type code. This has to be set to customer because we also have phone numbers for employees and branches and so on. So what we do now is we use a different wizard, and here you see we have for almost all the objects, or for all the objects that we have in our core, we can create them with a wizard from our staging. So what we have to do here is we have to create a satellite, because in the information that belongs to such a business key goes into satellite. And here you see the first difference in this wizard, because here you have in a satellite you have to have a relationship to another object. So we need to select the hub that this satellite connects to. Of course, this is going to be the customer hub in our case here. and then I create the relationship, and then I can select the terms that I want to use in my satellite. So where the information or the terms that have information that I need. So I can select all of them or deselect all of them, but here I only need the phone number. So I create this and map this, and here we have this phone number satellite. So also we change the naming here because we want to kind of be a bit more specific in what this guy does. Save this, and then we have to do one little mapping because you see here in our relationship. So the relationships, you see those here. So we have a relationship to this customer hub. So we still have to map this foreign key, and this is done quite easily. So this is the hub customer ID. So I use this one and go here. Sorry, I went into the wrong satellite, but that's okay because I wanted to do this one. So here I have to do the same thing. So I have to map the foreign key here from this source, and I also have to kind of add the where information. So I have now a where clause that I can fill in so that we get the real data. So this is this one. So we have IntelliSense here, so I don't have to remember what the column name is exactly, and this is equal to customer. So since I'm a SQL Server guy, I write this here in SQL Server code or syntax. Maybe this is not going to work in Spark, but Mark will correct this afterwards, of course. So that's it for the moment. So now we have kind of added this to our model. So in the core, everything is fine. And we have now can go into our data mart object. And here we need, of course, the additional source. And here you see all the objects that can be used as a source. And this is going to be, let me see here, the customer phone number. So I add this here. I also make these a bit smaller so that we see a bit better what we're doing. So here, what we want to add into our sales star is, of course, the phone number. So we go here to auto and then add this guy. And we also have to add the join condition here. So working with a data vault model, this is quite easy. So we have to have the I think it's the S7. S7, yeah. So this is the shortcut for the customer phone number, not the S7. And here we have the hub hash key, and this should be equal to, now I have to look it up. So this is the customer satellite, for example. So S4, so this is where the information for which customer is part of this model object is in there. So, and with that, we already have kind of completed the task that was set to us. So now we have the phone number here in our model object. And just to check where this comes from, this is what Thomas mentioned earlier. So the term-based data lineage. Let's have a look. So here we see now, okay, these are all the objects that lead into this. And can make this a bit bigger, I think, yeah, like this. So you see here, okay, the phone number itself that comes with this satellite from the staging element, and then here from the source element. Just to make sure, we can also do this here for the other way. So if we go in here and check on, okay, where does this attribute go into? Oh no, we can't do this in the source, but I think we should be able to do this here. So here we are, the phone number. So where does this lead? So we can also check this and see, okay, so where does this go into? So in case you ever need to look it up in the other way. So this was something that was not possible in the desktop application. So what next? Now, of course, we would like to test this out. So we have to generate, or we want to generate our new model, the enhanced model with the phone number. So we go into this tab here, in the generate artifacts, and then we can press on generate. And now we go and drink a coffee for a couple minutes, or we can start or continue working, which was not really possible in the desktop application. And I'm sure some of you will be familiar with that. So what we also have here is a kind of an overview of what's happening. So I've just seen this guy has left us. So the generation is now finished, but you see what is happening and you can still work on other stuff. Okay, just a sec. Okay, so this is the new hot stuff that Thomas also mentioned, the relationship view. So here I've kind of built or made the relationship model for my data mart in the core view. So we have the sales transaction link, and we have the information that belongs to that link. So this is a link satellite. And then we have data that comes from the point of sale system that leads us to a branch, and some information that where is this branch, and so on. We also have some information about the items and the item units of measures, and of course with which loyalty card the customer paid, which then leads us to which customer it was. So we have to add now one new thing, and we do this by this. So we have to check out, okay, we want to have the elements in the data vault, and then you only see those that are not yet used, and we want to use this customer phone number satellite. So we can kind of say, okay, this is another one. Let's do this a bit nicer, and then of course we can save this layout so that we can look at it afterwards. So this is kind of you can use this relationship models for visualizing things as a documentation. But I'll show you later on also that you can do a little bit more with that already. Okay, so now we're really curious what happened with our generation. And as we've shown beginning of June, you can download the code or the generated artifacts. But we also have the possibility to push those to the repo that go to this project. So I'll just do this. And this is my repo. Okay, this is of course the one before the push. So I have to refresh my browser here. And what you now see is that we have the artifacts elements here. So these are the artifacts that are generated out of this model that we've done or that you've seen, and where the templates are applied. So as Mark mentioned, we have some Jupyter notebooks. So let's have a look. So yeah, so an insert into and a select from and so on. So this looks okay. We also have load control. I think that's what Mark mentioned with those pipelines that we use. And we have a couple of other things that are generated that you need when kind of wanting to deploy your stuff. So this is one thing, or one way you can, of course, automate this now in Azure DevOps, because this is here in Azure DevOps. And when you push a new artifacts to a repo, you can build a pipeline that now would deploy something to a development system where it automatically tries out a couple of loads, and where you get quite fast feedback afterwards if what you've done is correct, and where you don't need any manual deployments anymore, but everything is automated. Of course, this is outside the scope of our application, but I think this can be easily configured, and I think we have also a couple of people who can help you there. So this is kind of what we wanted to show you here. Okay, so thing I'd also like to add here is how can we also use this new view here. So you already see, okay, you can have different views, of course, here as well, where you have different parts of your model inside them. You can have multiple views that show kind of the same stuff. And you can also use these here kind of to work your way from the source or from what the customer wants, your customer that you're modeling for, and discuss this with him in a more graphic way. So here I can go, okay, we say, okay, you see, this is still kind of a very basic information. So we just have the items and the item of units of measures here for the kitchen menu and information about what products we cook and so on. And we would also like to add the chef here. So we go and discuss this. And while discussing this, we kind of say, okay, so what we need is we need the chef, of course. So this would be a hub. And we can also do a description if you want, don't have to. Save this. And what we also want is some information. So chef info, I call this, which is the data that belongs to that chef, and that would be a satellite. So I save this as well. And then I have to select them to add them to my new view here. So I put these two guys in, and of course they don't have any relations yet, but I can place them in a better way, save this layout. And now I can go here on the plus. I can already see, okay, that's the objects where I can do a relation to. So I make the relation here, and then I add this relation as well. And now if we go and look, for example, into this satellite here, that's where we have to go. So we can do the edit of the model object. We can manage relationships, all the things that you can also do from the data flow modeling. We can start from here. And if you go here in the manage relationships, you see, okay, we already have this entity added. And of course, this is still not really, we now would need to fill it with life from, okay, this is where the data comes from. These are the business keys, and these are the terms that are useful here. But this is kind of a way to kind of work more visually with your customers, we think. So that's it for the show. I hope it helped you a little bit in understanding what Thomas and Mark told you about and how to work with our new application. I quite like it, but of course I'm a bit biased. So I think now it's time for Q&A.
Yeah, one question was that the internet connection is right now not that good, and if we get a link to the recording afterwards, yes, you will get the link to the recording that you can also watch it later, or when you have internet, not a good internet connection, you can watch it as many times as you want, what Danny or Mark present. There was another,
yeah. Also share it with other people that might be interested, of course.
And another question is it possible to have condition expressions on column mappings that use multiple columns as a source?
Oh yeah, of course. So if I go into this new satellite that I've done, and what I can do here is, of course, I can add this, and then I have here this expression. So I can say, okay, for example, this is a case when equals 1, then whatever. So yeah, this is then s1 dot like this. So this of course does not make a lot of sense here. But yeah, you can. It's no problem that you can use syntax SQL Server for a SQL Server or Spark syntax that you use that the target platform understands. And of course, we support you here with the syntax highlighting already.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention is that the expression editor will also be extended for different technologies that you have, like the IntelliSense also for the reserved keywords like case, when, and so on. And here are also a lot of things which are going on in the background.
Actually,
yeah.
I'm just I've probably been too nervous because I skipped over one part that I would also like to show. That's more the upcoming part that Thomas mentions. Some of that is already here. Sorry about that. So what we have is those advanced settings. And what you have here is, for example, you have the custom properties, default values, and everything where you can make the changes. At the moment, I have to say, you can make these changes here, but they will not have an impact in the code as of yet. We're working on that. Some of those need the custom templates, I think. Some others need some stuff from us, but we're working on that. So what I would like to show you maybe is one thing. So what we do here is kind of add a new term. We call this the demo property, of course. So, and we have this for the links, and this is a Boolean value with a default value of false. So we save this guy. And now if we go back to not the source system, but to our modeling and have a look at the link, what we see now is here, if you go into the edit terms, we should see here the new custom property, this demo property, and we can select the value for that. So this is already working, and as you see here in the advanced settings, you have a lot of options to do this. So this, at the moment, this will probably be more for documentation. You can use it for documentation purposes, but I think in the next couple of weeks, we also will have the templates in place so that you can add stuff. And you see already here the edit template modules. So this is already inside the application. We're just not using it yet. But what I've prepared here is kind of a template module, so we can have add these for new object types. And I've prepared one here. So this kind of shows you what the template would look like. So we use this for a couple of those link objects, not all of them. And then you just have to write, it's kind of similar, or you can use more or less the same kind of coding structure that you have used in the templates in the biG7 application. And of course, this will also be documented well. And we'll also have the syntax highlighting here. As you already see here, for each is, for example, highlighted. I think this should be for each. So yeah, so this is already prepared, but we're still working on the finishing touches, because of course this also has an impact on the security. So we want to be a bit not too fast, but cautious, so that we don't kind of break anything with not looking at the security well enough. So. But now that's it from my side.
Good. Maybe again, back to the question about the multiple columns or multiple mappings. The answer was already given by Daniel, and you will also, or you would see it also visually. You have like this mapping symbol, which was in blue, and if you have multiple mapping, you would also see a number next to it. Yep. Here we see it. That's a good example. We have like this 2, and where you could also see where it is mapped. this too. And when you switch to auto, you will also see on the right side directly where it would be mapped, and then you see it either visually here. And another question was, and I think it's about these multiple columns. Does the data lineage also consider those multiple columns in the expressions? The answer is yes. You would see it in the data term data lineage, that you will see there are two terms which are going into one, or one is going into two, and so on. So you would see that also in the term based data lineage.
That's interesting. I never looked at that, so that's cool. Just have to really look at that. Ah, cool.
Now
great.
You see both, and you see where it's the data coming from both, and that this one is going afterwards into the branch name of the Mart Composite Sales Star.
No, feature is even better than I thought. Cool.
Good. Are there any other questions? At the moment, I don't see any other. Maybe one question I would have, and Daniel, maybe you can answer it, is about is it possible to upgrade from a biGENIUS-7 application to a biGENIUS-X application? And what does that mean?
So we already are working on that, and we've already have some demos that we've done with some customer databases. So we take the database and extract out of the SQL Server database the information and what the model would look like here in biGENIUS-7. So this is a file structure, and we've already imported 1 or 2 projects. Of course, it's not finished yet, so there's still a little bit of work to do, but at the moment it looks really good, and we've used this, for example, for performance testing. I think you did one of the bigger customer databases, so how that would feel like in biGENIUS-X here. So yes, we're working on that. Not finished yet, but I think the basic model you can already take over. Of course, at the moment you would have to look at a bit more, but this will be available. And maybe one other thing that I can answer here is kind of going into a tangent here, but since we use kind of the same basic model for different technologies like SQL Server or Spark here, it's also possible to kind of start with a SQL Server modeling and then switch to a different technology without too much trouble. So the basic thing that we have to do, and if I go back to get a bit technical here, is we have the project YAML file. So you see here what generator we use. So we would have to just change this here. And then we are modeling in SQL Server, for example. Of course, the answer is not that quick because we also have to change the data types. This is also not too hard. So because we can map integer or the data type from a Spark or Snowflake or whatever to a SQL Server data type, that would be appropriate. So these are the 2 big things that you have to do, and this, from my point of view, no big deal, and we'll do that ourselves with our testing projects. And of course, if you have in these expressions here, if you use some methods that are like you can't use in the other target technology, then you have to translate this. And this might be something that has to be done by hand. Maybe we can also think about some stuff to help you there. But so I think changing the technology will be much easier than before. Not such a big project. This should really not so hard. If you don't have any tough expressions here, it should be a piece of cake. Knock on wood. But yeah, so this is also a possibility. So you can start in one technology and then decide, okay, maybe we don't really know yet what technology you want to use. and then switch afterwards.
Thanks for the explanations. I think what you said one very important point about the huge project we migrate to biGENIUS-X, or did a couple of tests, and especially we use it for performance testing. And maybe to say here a couple of sentences, it was very good. It was very fast. I don't think you see a big difference between a small project or a big one. It's how it is created in the background and how it is gets from the Git repo, because this time we don't set that, but in the release date we said that a couple of times. Everything is stored not in our database, everything is stored in the Git repository, and there you have just a couple of files, or in a bigger project, of course, a lot of files, and we load them in the application, and then everything else is done by the browser. And so the performance was very good, especially for a larger project. Yes, of course, you can always improve performance, and we do that probably in each sprint to improve performance on one or the other places. And there were another two questions. One is there an API to create model objects from an external application? Yes and no. Yes, it means there is, of course, an API, and no, at the moment, it is not possible to create model objects from an external application. I think the reason here is especially that not the API knows how a model object looks like, because it is part of the web application, and the web application knows that, and the web application sends everything to the Git repo. So your browser logs to the log into the Git repo, not the API, not our system. So it's really the browser which is running in your local network, your local machine, which is connecting at the end to the Git repo. But this is something which we thought about, and it's something which I don't think we say no, but it's something which was not yet part of our release strategy. And another question is, will it be possible to customize the structure of a generator, for example, additional parts or templates in the future? And Donny, maybe you can answer it.
Sorry, I was spaced out for a second.
Will it be possible to customize the structure of a generator, so additional parts, templates in the future?
I think what you can do is you or we can build for you your custom generator that takes if you're really far from where our standard generators are at. But I think that's one thing we've learned with the desktop application, that an upgrade afterwards from a standard generator is quite hard. So what we rather think of is if you have really different setup, then you might have to do your own custom generator, or you can see if what you propose makes sense, and integrate that into our solution. But that's the answer to that question, I think, at the moment, or the way we're thinking right now.
Yeah, so it's always possible to create your own generator. We're also thinking about how it's easier to create your own generator. At the moment, it is something which is, of course, done by us, but not say no in the future that everybody could create the generator. The question always is it really needed, or is it possible to use our generator and just adopt, for example, a small change in a template or something like that? It really depends on the requirements, of course, but yeah, you cannot customize a generator created by us with additional parts, for example. Then you could create your own. or you should create your own. Good. I don't see any new questions. I hope I got everything. Maybe let's wait another second. Maybe Daniel, you can go back to the slides and then we see how to get a trial account. Just one slide. And maybe in the meantime, we get another question. If not, if you would like to create a trial account, as I said before, just write us at CS, stands for customer success, at biGENIUS-X.com. Write us an email. We will set up an account for you, a trial account. Then you can play around with biGENIUS-X, see how easy it is to create a model and how fast you can be, and what Daniel showed you, how fast and how easy it is at the end. Good. So there isn't any new question. So that means we are through. Thank you all for attending, and we will send you the recording or the link to the recording, and that you have everything together. Thank you all for attending. Have a nice evening.